Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another live interview. I'm here today with Sapna Pieroux, and she is here to talk with us about branding. Sapna, you are a best-selling author of Let's Get Visible. Sapna is the founder of InnerVisions ID, and your vision process promises to help you gain brand clarity and essentially stand out in your industry and supercharge your business growth. Today, I'm hoping that we can talk about lots of stuff to do with branding and really help out our community here at FTEN X Academy to understand what they can do right now and why branding is so important. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
Thanks very much, Seb. I'm great, actually. Yeah, how are you? Adjusting to lockdown?
I'm good, yeah. Yeah, I pretty much adjusted now. I think it's, like you said, it's almost becoming a bit normal now. You know, everyone's getting into their routine a little bit, you know, so.
I think we've kind of finally found our groove. That was the first couple of weeks. I was a bit like, what the hell's just happened? And you know, I've got two little boys, as you know, Luc and Leon, and I was like, my husband's an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur. We've both got two businesses, and suddenly we've got two boys as well. So that was a bit of a challenge, but we've got into kind of a rhythm now. So I can't imagine them going back to school now, to be honest.
Yeah, right. So with your work then, was your work primarily online before this all happened, or?
Well, I've always done an element of remote working because my clients are, you know, kind of based all over the UK and the world. I've got clients in the UK, in Australia, in America, and in Europe. So there's always been an element of online, but I do these one-day branding workshops for startups, and they were always an in-person product. So that took some adjusting because I had quite a lot of them booked in when lockdown happened, and it was a quick like, well, I either lose those bookings and those business owners won't get their branding done, or I quickly kind of adjust, which is what we all had to do, isn't it? So in order to keep going, I mean, you did the same with your business.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, you get inventive, don't you, when you have to? So
yeah, you definitely get creative, that's for sure.
Now, yeah.
So have you managed to run any of your one-day workshops online yet?
Yeah, I've done about 5 or 6 of them online, and more booked in. So yeah, but they're exhausting on Zoom. We do them on Zoom, and normally what I realise is normally because they're in the room with me, you're looking away from the screen and you're talking to a real person, so you're naturally giving your eyes a break. You know, and your focus is changing, but actually it's more intense when you're trying to read. A lot of what I do is reading people, and kind of some of my clients have said it's a bit like a therapy session, and I really dig to get, you know, under the skin of the business to really understand it, and doing that kind of, you know, interrogation, if you like, is actually quite intense on screen because you're having to really read someone's face. It's a lot smaller than it would be in real life. So I've got 2 screens, so I actually have them bigger, but and then I have got the work on the other screen. But it's I start the days earlier and I finish them later because we need more breaks because it's so intense. So it has made my work days longer. But
well, this is it, I suppose, isn't it? We're all rushing to get online, but actually, the way in which we deliver online is just going to completely change as well as we learn over the next few months what that actually means, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, a normal workshop at normal workshop hours just may not be possible if you're doing it all on Zoom or online, as you said.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've made it possible because the whole premise is you get your branding sorted in a day, you know, and that's what a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of, time is of the essence, and they just want to, you know, get GSD, you know, say shit done, but yeah, you know, so that it was created for startups so that they can at least go launch into the marketplace, looking the part, looking in the part.
Yeah, that's so key as well, and I've seen a lot of the work you've created, and it is absolutely incredible. You know, when the startups go through your workshop, they don't look like startups. They look like they've been doing this, you know, 5-10 years. Where I can tell you what my startup business looked like, and it didn't look like that. You know, so having that.
You know, it's not about logo. What I do actually is more about giving them confidence. What I do is give entrepreneurs confidence. And it's not just confidence in themselves, it's confidence in the market has confidence in them.
Yes.
If you're out looking professional and put together and like you've actually put some thought into this, then people kind of, you know, people kind of trust you more. It's
totally.
Gender in trust.
I think it's so much easier for someone to pitch for that bigger project, or you know, confidently put a quote forward for their work when they look the part, like you said, right, and they feel empowered by that branding. I'm completely with you there.
Mm.
I'd love to find out how you got into this.
Oh wow! Okay.
You know, Sapna, I'm thinking like a young Sapna. What were you always into this, or?
I'm still young.
You know, I mean, a really young Sapna.
Like embryonic. Yeah, so when I was an embryo, I went to university.
Can I read that?
Not really. When I was very young, I went to university and I studied graphic design at uni. But I realised, I mean, I sort of tell this story in the book, that most designers weren't being trained for business. We weren't being trained for the world of business. We were being trained to be creative. But I knew I wanted to be a graphic designer, and I knew that was ultimately it's commercial art. And if the design, I've always had the belief that if the design isn't helping you sell something, because that's the purpose of commercial art, then it's actually just a piece of art. It doesn't have the commercial aspect. So as graphic design used to be called that. So I decided to take a postgrad in marketing off the back of my, and also I wanted to be a student for an extra year, because I had some mates that were doing 4-year courses and mine was only a 3-year course. So I was like, right, I want to hang around for, so I sort of found a 1-year marketing postgrad. And that way I could, I sort of decided that I would have the design side and the business strategy side as well, because I wanted to know how design fit into the marketing mix and how it could best support business. So right. That was, I was kind of I was a student back then, but I kind of realised that that's what I wanted to do. And then, but by accident, I then fell into radio, which is the least visual medium you can think of. But my final year project in my marketing course, my final project, shall I say, was seen by the marketing director of the local radio station. And he was actually the group marketing director for Metro Radio Group. So there were 7 radio stations in the northeast in Yorkshire in England. And they offered me a job, like basically just on the site of seeing this 5 minutes of video that I'd produced. So I thought it might be a great place to meet pop stars. And so I went for the job, because I was like, well, is it a design job? They went, no, it's marketing. And I was like, well, I'm going to get to go to loads of gigs, and I might get to meet Robbie Williams.
There you go. Why not apply?
I was in my 20s, and I thought it was like quite a good gig. So I took it and stayed there for 3 years. And actually, whilst I was there, because I worked in the marketing department, I was briefing design agencies to kind of provide the collateral for our sales team to go out and sell radio. So we were coming up with the marketing campaigns, and then we'd work with design agencies. And I then experienced the frustrations of being on the marketing side and being the client. So quite a few of my roles have actually been on either the commercial side, the sales side, the marketing side, and having to deal with or dealing with creatives and briefing them out. So I experienced the frustrations on that side, but then I also have been a designer in various roles. I left there and I went to work at a design agency in Glasgow for a while, and then came down with my then boyfriend, moved to Manchester and freelanced as a designer for various agencies there until I got a permanent role. And then, of course, I was at the whim of business owners telling me what to do. As designers, you have business owners going, "Can you make the logo bigger?" Or and there were frustrations from both sides, right? So having realised that, I thought this book needed to be written because it educates the business owner about brand and branding. So this is not just a book about branding; it's about building your brand. And that is more than just your logo. And a lot of clients, even now, working with entrepreneurs now, as I have for the last 4 years, exclusively so with entrepreneurs, quite often, a client will say to me, yeah, I've had my branding done. I just want a brochure. I've had my branding done. So I'll go, well, what have you got? And they go, well, I've got this logo. And I'll go, that's not your branding. That's not actually everything. That's like the tip. I always describe the logo as like the tip of an iceberg. So it's the most visible part of that iceberg. And it obviously goes across everything. So people think that is the brand. But there's all this stuff that lies beneath that should support your brand. Because a logo on its own does not convey everything you need to be saying. So my vision process in the book, which I know you've read.
Yeah, I was very honoured to be asked to be the proofreader for your book. Let's Go. Brilliant book. Brilliant book.
So yeah, the vision process was built with that in mind, because it was all the questions that I was asking business owners and having to educate them about as well. And just sort of say, well, actually, we're not going to just start with your favourite typeface and your favourite colours, because that doesn't come until step 4 in my 6-step process. And it's not then even about, in fact, what's favourite. It's what's going to work for your business and what's going to appeal to your target market as well. But we start with, so it's called vision, and there's 6 steps: VISION. And the first one is visualize. So that's the bit where I ask my clients to dream big and actually take themselves out of their business for a minute, because everybody just is on a treadmill of getting stuff done. And this is the point. Again, I've had clients say this is like therapy, because they get to sit back and go, well, actually, what do you want? So we start off with an exercise that any of your listeners or viewers can do, which I call the 5 aspirational brands exercise.
The five aspirational brands.
Yes, or the FABs.
The FABs.
So it's so you think about the 5 brands that you look at and you admire from your business owner's perspective. So you kind of go, when my business grows up, or when I grow up, I want my business to be like that, or to be thought of like that, or to be respected like that, or to have that kind of service for my clients, or provide that kind of product. So it encourages brand, sort of business owners to think about brand in much more than just visual terms, because you realise that the brands you feel loyal to are a whole, there's a whole lot more to them. I mean, are there any brands that you feel loyal to, Seb, or any brands that you admire from you don't have to give me 5, just one.
I admire Nike. I think it's I like the message there. I like, what are the brands? Can I think off the top of my head?
No,
other brands that I use.
We'll just take Nike.
Okay, cool, yeah, go for it.
An example. So with that, so the message obviously is just do it, which is great. Someone like you, I know you've got very high energy and you get an awful lot of stuff done, so that's going to resonate, brilliantly with you. From a brand perspective, their products are pretty universal. There's something for everybody. They're aspirational. They use high profile athletes to and personalities to promote their brands. It's something that is quite a cool brand, so it's like worn by rap stars as well as sport. It's a fashion and a sport brand. The photography on the website is really colourful and kind of lifestyle driven. Obviously, it's a product based brand, but so there's all these elements that we start looking at, and it's like, well, how does the brand make you feel? And some people might even talk about the experience of going into a store if they pick a retail brand, or the fact it's the quality of the goods as well. You get, it's your bang for buck, and so there's all these different things we start drawing out of even just one brand, and it's like, what do we take out of that brand that you would want to convey in your company? What do you want people to think of out of Nike as an aspirational brand for your company?
So you pick your 5 brands. So the FAB exercise, you pick your 5 favorite brands.
Yeah.
Then you brainstorm out, you sort of fan out all the different things that they represent.
Yes.
And then you select the things that you resonate with the most and that you want to represent you and your brand going forward for the next however many years.
Yeah, it's not just your favorite brands, it's the aspirational ones that you want to grow your company.
The brands that inspire you and the way you kind of see yourself. The brands that inspire you and the way you kind of see yourself.
Yes, your company, yeah. I'm making the definition that it's not so much yourself, because that's personal branding and that's not what I do. So it is more about company.
Company branding, yeah.
Sorry?
Company branding.
Yes. Although, often quite a lot of entrepreneurs do muddle those 2 things up and kind of conflate because it's their business. They will kind of think that the company branding is their personal branding, and especially if their business is named after them. But they are 2 separate but linked things. And there is a bit in the book about personal branding, but it's an outline of it. But it's kind of just showing the differences between the 2. The personal brand is more about how you show up as an individual, as a business owner. But as a person in real life as well. So that's it's your Facebook page, it's your LinkedIn profile, it's it's when you go out and speak, it's how you show up, what you wear, all of that, the sort of the words that you say, and the tone in which you say them. So that's personal brand, which is not what I do. But sometimes I will work with clients, and we might talk about what they're wearing as part of the rebrand, as to maybe they should change the way that they're looking, if this is the way they want to portray themselves in the future. So
awesome.
that's just the first bit.
Great exercise, yeah.
And then
that's the first bit. That's the V for vision, right?
Well, there's two bits of that. We got caught up on the fab. So there's your vision, and then there's your customer's vision. So there's your vision, where you are now, where you want to be in 3 to 5 years' time, and where your customer is now, and where they want to be as a result of spending with you, and also like obviously they are. So that's V, and then I is inner brand, which is your heart and soul of your brand. It's your brand values, your brand personality, and your brand voice. So if the values are really important to any company, and any entrepreneur who hasn't kind of thought about their values should really take this time in lockdown to have a think about what are the non-negotiables, what are the things that not only you operate by, but what you want your staff to live by these values. And it's how you treat your clients and your suppliers and your team. So those, because people will feel loyal to companies who they feel share their brand values. Or share their values. So if you are an ethical company, you're going to attract like-minded people who feel that you share the same sort of worldview as them. Yeah. And, you do a lot of good things for various different causes. So that's something that comes really from the heart, and it's going to make people want to work with you more, not just when the good times roll, but obviously, when you've had troubles or whatever. If everybody's like cutting down their money and their spend right now in lockdown, they're going to keep the spend for the companies that they feel really deserve it, and they feel very aligned to and want to support.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really important. And then the personality and brand voice are how those are expressed. So your brand values are quite what's inner, and the personality and the voice are how that is expressed. And that's to do with language and tone and imagery and things like that. But we don't address it now. We just establish what it is. Okay. Then we move to stand out, which is I always say my favourite part of the process, really, because this is like a real eye-opening. This is the part that's really enlightening for a lot of entrepreneurs, because you look at the competition around you, and you start to realise how badly most people have branded their businesses, usually, and also sorry, I'm just realising that my charger isn't charging, but there we are, it is now. Didn't want to go dead halfway through.
No worries.
So you look around, you can identify industry norms and industry cliches in every industry. So for example, I was working with a property developer, and there's a lot of houses and a lot of roofs in the logos, so that I would say is a norm and also a cliche. There's also a lot of, if you look at financial services, there's a lot of blue, for example. Or if I say organic products, what colours do you think of?
Green, brown.
Yeah, right. So now, so my whole thing is about getting people to stand out in their industry. Right. So if you follow all the industry norms, if you do exactly the same as everybody else, as in business, you're not visually representing your USP. You're not actually standing out. You're not catching people's attention. You're blending into the crowd. So Let's Get Visible is about showing you how to stand out in your industry, and that is about conveying your uniqueness, but also doing it in a slightly different way, so that you, even if there was like 100 logos on the page, and I know the brand's not your logo, but it's the first point of contact. If there's something that draws you, there's something that makes you stand out, and that can be through colour or imagery.
Could you give us an example of a brand you've worked with? Showing that.
Loads of them. The one that really stands out for me was, Robin Waite.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Robin Waite, for people that don't know him, is a business coach. And when I started doing his branding, I asked him for his 5 aspirational brands, and he sent me 5 business coaches, which I was a bit disappointed by, really, because I thought he was a bit outside of the box, and I was like, it doesn't have to be in your industry. By the way, your fab should be from within and without of your industry. So the fresh thinking comes in from outside of your industry, right? If you just follow and aspire to do what everybody in your industry is doing, you're going to end up just being like them. So, and certainly from a visual point of view. So I looked at them, and I'm not going to mention these business coaches, but they're big, they're global. There was quite a lot of big, shouty American business coaches in this, and Robin's not like that. You know, he's very British. He's very personable, and he's got, you know, he's got a lovely, friendly, casual sort of approach, and he certainly wasn't suited and booted like some of these other guys that he was sending me. And then he sent me a couple of other kind of female entrepreneurs, which I was surprised by. But I just went, anyway, they're all business coaches, and I went, now Robin likes surfing, right? And I knew that about him. Luckily, I knew that already. I was like, and he always used to wear Salt Rock t-shirts, always presents in Salt Rock t-shirts. We used to anyway, before I branched him. And I was like, what about Salt Rock? And I was like, is that not one of your aspirational brands? And he went, oh, I never thought of them. So we ended up doing branding that actually took more of its visual language from the world of surfing. Because I identified that actually business, his company, his coaching company is called Fearless Business, right? You have to be fearless to surf as well, right? You've got to, it's all about, a lot of the terminologies are a lot the same. It's like about catching a break, riding a wave, you know, kind of feeling like you're going badly. So there was a lot of synergies between the world of surfing and having to be brave to go out there and ride those, you know, those rough waves to catch that break and to, you know, sort of, you know, soar basically. So we took a lot of his, a lot of that visual, you know, kind of inspiration from the world of surfing, and that's where we created the Fearless Business logo and his own personal brand, actually, Robin Way, all in the same style. And now, you know, if you put his logo, if you just Google Business Coaches UK or whatever, and a load of, you know, logos, and a load of logos come up, his stands out a country mile because it looks so not corporate like all the others, but you know, he attracts a different vibe of crowd anyway. And with a name like Fearless Business, it completely suits his personality. Now he wears Fearless t-shirts all the time, so he got rid of all the Salt Rock ones. They all went to the charity shop, and now he presents them Fearless.
And in terms of colours and that sort of stuff, how did you represent that?
So there's always the fourth part is when we start bringing things together, which is the part that I call image.
I'm rushing ahead then.
So that's no, it's not. We've kind of done stand out, and I've told you how to stand out, which is I always look at your competitors and kind of understand the visual language. But what you don't want to do, so there's three aspects of your branding. So now we move into branding. We've been talking about brand until now, and now branding is actually making your brand visual. Right. We've established brand is much more than just a logo. It's a set of values and visions and, you know, ambitions and things like that. So there's type, color, and imagery. The three elements of any branding it comes down to type, color, and imagery. And by imagery, it could be photographs or illustrations or patterns, like, you know, on the front of the book there. But those applied consistently are what's going to kind of build your brand and your visual identity. So then I work with the client and go, well, what's working in the industry for you and what's not working in the industry? And actually, let's put a twist on that. If we change everything, type, color, and imagery, you risk not looking like anything from your industry. So people won't recognize that you belong to that industry. It's a bit like, you know, putting on a hat and glasses and like a Mac and everything, you just won't be recognizable. So it's like, if a type, color, and imagery are the three things, then actually maybe just twist one of those up or two of those up to look a bit different. So with Robin, we kept to the blue of, you know, kind of the business world, and business coaches use a lot of blue. So we did put a blue in there. It was a slightly unusual blue, but it was the type that was so different because it looked like a surf brand. It was kind of distressed and, you know, kind of almost handwritten. So that looked kind of disruptive in that industry. Yeah, it looked different. But we did it if we'd have done that in pastel pink, it would have been completely wrong feel and look. So he kept the blue to kind of make it more businessy. So you can play with those three elements, type, color, and imagery, in order to not only get across the message that you want to, but also to stand out.
Amazing. Brilliant.
So and then there's two more bits.
We're on the O now, aren't we?
We're on the O. So that's output, and that's when I talk about brand guidelines, because a lot of people who think they've had their branding done come away and they've got a logo and no brand guidelines. So again, it's like, you know, if somebody says to me, you know, I've had my branding done, I just want a brochure, and they hand me a logo, I'm going, right, okay, so you want me to build a house without a blueprint?
Yeah.
You know, it's like setting your foundations out there or having a plan, and that's what your brand guidelines give you. So it's like, you know, these are the fonts you use, these are the colors you use, this is the typeface, these are the rules of using your logo, this is the kind of imagery that you use. You know, I kind of look at the kind of photography or the illustration or whatever that will keep that consistent all the way through. A lot of business owners will tend to use maybe Shutterstock or, you know, sort of stock imagery, you know, when especially when they're starting out, or if they can't, you know, get a shoot of their own done. And that, you know, you can fall down into the cheesy route, because a lot of stock imagery can be quite cliched. So it's about educating them as to there is good stock imagery out there, but it's about actually knowing how to find that and what to look for. So I give them guidelines on that as well, but also guidelines on when they do photo shoots as to how those photos should look. So it's a brief for the photographer as well,
right,
to make sure that there is, you know, a branding kind of message and a style carried through everything.
And I've seen some brand guidelines, you know, they're almost like encyclopedias. They're so big, right? And I've seen others which are just a few pages. But I guess even if you're a startup, the important thing is to have something in place which guides the way in which you're seen publicly, your brand is portrayed. Because I guess if you don't have that, even if you think you know how you're supposed to represent your brand over, you know, graphically or whatever, over time, small changes can start to happen.
Yeah.
And then by, you know, 5-10 years down the line, it's a totally different brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I found that myself, you know, I was a proper case of the cobbler's, you know, children with no shoes on, because I didn't do my own brand guidelines. I hadn't actually documented my own brand guidelines, because it was like, well, in my head, I know I'm the one producing the collateral at that point, you know. But as soon as the company starts to expand and it's more than me, I then have to give those brand guidelines to someone else, like somebody doing my social media, to start putting things together. She needs to have a guide for that. So brand guidelines are really important as your company scales, because suddenly it won't just be you, and it shouldn't just be you as an entrepreneur doing every single thing in your business. So also, if you're going to brief out, you know, a video production company, or you know, your book designer, you know, if you're getting a book published, or you know, if you're getting social media posts made, or whatever, you send out those, or your website built, you send out those same brand guidelines. And the idea is that everything will stay looking fairly consistent across the board, because you've only got a few seconds to make an impact online. You know, if people are fast, you scroll through, you know, Facebook feeds. If you've got like an ad or a post on there and it's not branded, and it doesn't have that branding, that people don't actually recognize it as yours, and they'll scroll straight past. So strong branding is really important to actually just even catch people's eye in the first place. So with somebody else that we know in our network, Rebecca Godfrey. So she, I mean, what color does she own?
Yellow.
Yeah, right. So
recognizable. You see that, you see one of her posts come up, and you associate it straight away with
right. But the funny thing is, she went to an event and was wearing a black dress with a red ditzy floral print. Right. It wasn't her event. She wasn't presenting there. It was just, she'd gone to an event. Somebody took a photo. I can't remember if she posted it or they posted it. I don't know, but I just sort of almost whizzed straight past. And then I kind of stopped and went back again and went, I almost didn't recognize it as you, because there was no yellow in the post. And that's, you know, But
when it becomes so familiar, you see that enough. That shows up again and again and again. That color, that person. That color, that person. Yeah. You just start to associate it, right?
Yeah, so and actually, I wasn't even doing it that strongly myself.
Yeah.
And then I went to pre my book coming out. I had a book talk when it was my first one, which was actually just locally, and it was a friend of mine who runs a local business group. And I thought, well, that's kind of quite good as a practice run, you know, before I go and stand on a stage elsewhere, because it was amongst friends and people that I knew, by and large. So I went, and I was wearing black and white. I wear a lot of black and white anyway, but I tend to wear red when I'm kind of doing the, you know, the big on stage sort of type things. I thought, oh, this is just in a cafe, and there was 30-40 entrepreneurs there still, but I didn't dress up because it was like a cafe, and you know. And my friend Emily came over to watch me, to support me, and she came up to me afterwards and she went, "You're not wearing red." All right, I'm wearing my brand colours. I was still black and white. And she went, "No, but you're not wearing red." And she went, "I was going to wear my red dress." And I thought, I'm not going to wear red because Sapna's going to wear red because she's presenting, and now you're not wearing red. And I didn't realise it had become that much of an expectation.
Yeah, right.
In other people's, I hadn't, and I wasn't taking my own, advice. And I suddenly went, oh God, right. And so of course, then I went and bought 5 more red dresses.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And then lockdown happened, so I didn't have a chance to wear anything. I wore one at my book launch. I wore one new dress at my book launch, and I've got a load of other ones that I haven't managed to wear yet.
So it's wearing something red. Just a piece of your clothing has to be red, right? Doesn't matter what it is. For instance, necklace today, could be a dress, could be shoes, whatever.
Buying red stuff all the time, so I thought, well, I just need to have a pop of colour in the feed, which is what the book's about as well, right? So right. So O is about outputs, is about how you it's about your brand guidelines and adhering to those. And then I also kind of look at, sort of give entrepreneurs tips on like how to build your website and how to, not that I'm a web developer, but, principles of web design and principles of brochure design. And then nurture is the last one, which is, once you've got your shiny new brand guidelines, what do you do? Once you've been given those by your agency or by your designer, what then? It's like being handed a baby. And for the first time, I know you're due soon with your second, but you'll know what to do in that time. But when you first get your baby, and you're kind of like, what am I going to do with this now? How am I going to keep it alive? How am I going to? Yeah, I used to look into the cot every morning when I first had Luke. I'd be like, oh my God, he survived another night. I can't even keep a spider plant alive, until then. I was killing plants. I
mean, I'm pretty lucky. We've got Google these days, so it's pretty straightforward. A quick Google search, and you can answer.
I know, but it's just this. Oh my God! So the thing with your brand guidelines is you can't really Google how you're gonna put those. I realised this when again with working with entrepreneurs, and then they get their brand guidelines and they go off and they give these brand guidelines. They've paid to work with me, but then maybe they don't want to pay to work with me all the time because that would be quite expensive. So they then take the brand guidelines, which is their asset, and they go and take it to a cheaper source to kind of fulfill it. And this particular entrepreneur came back to me, and he'd given the brand guidelines to a kind of all-you-can-eat design house in the Philippines, where you kind of pay one fee and they kind of just churn out loads of stuff. And he said, I'm not going to ask you this all the time, but is it meant to look like this? Like, oh my God, have they even read the brand guidelines? It doesn't.
Yeah, oh no.
And that thing that you were saying, sometimes they're encyclopedic and sometimes they're quite simple. For my startups, I just do it as a one-pager. It's really basic.
Ready? Yeah.
It gets everything out there. But for the bigger projects, it will be a 12-pager because we do go more deeply into it. So I don't want it to be too big because otherwise you're not going to look at it. It's going to be overwhelming. No. It's got to be usable and easy to navigate. So the nurture package at the end of the branding is we include 3 months of support as you roll out your brand, which means kind of unlimited support. Even if you're going to work with other suppliers, we want to make sure it's in our interest that your brand goes out looking amazing, and that it's not screwed up by anyone who hasn't properly read the guidelines or isn't even as good a designer. You might be giving it to someone who's not as good. And I always say, even a Michelin chef can write you a recipe, but if you're not very good in the kitchen, you can still fuck it up, You can still mess it up. So I can give all the instructions in the world, but if you haven't got the eye for it and you don't really understand design, then you can still screw up. So nurture package is kind of more of an educational process where we work with the business owner, with anybody that's creating assets for their business. So it could be their web developer or their social media person or their PA, or it could be them themselves. I did a group coaching session with another of our friends, Sarah of Coaching Impact, Sarah Milnroe. Actually, because she's got so many associates and people working within her business now, all producing brand assets at a million miles an hour, because they're sort of always innovating and doing new things, that their brand was getting out of control.
Right.
Before they came to work with me, because whatever your brand guidelines are, even if you have brand guidelines, person A will put their own personal spin on it, and person B will put their spin on it, because everyone wants to try and be creative. With the guidelines, but actually if you've got like 5 or 6 people all being creative, you end up with stuff that all looks very different, and it doesn't look like a joined-up company. So So we kind of did a rebranding. It was more about sort of tightening up the brand and moving it into the next decade, sort of back in 2019. And with that, we sort of simplified the brand elements, but also I sort of did a training session with the team on Zoom to show them the principles of design and how to apply these. And they were just like, wow. So it was even things like PowerPoint tips, because they didn't know how to do X, Y, and Z, and set up a template so it would be consistent on each page or something like that. So it's helping them do that. And then also for the 3 months, if they're having stuff done by a web developer or by social media person, they can bang it through and just kind of go, is this all right? And actually it's part of the process. So we support before you can take the stabilizers off and let the brand grow.
Yeah. Amazing. So in terms of, for a lot of our business owners who are watching right now, I'm sure the majority would love the opportunity to work with you and go through this full process with you. But for those who are on a budget, startups, or maybe going through a really difficult time right now with the crisis that's around us, I guess, first of all, I'd like to find out what, you mentioned before why brand is more important now than ever before.
Yeah.
So I'd like to kind of go into that. And then I'd like to find out what they could do, with a budget, with a small budget right now.
Right. I mean, this is the thing that I've been asked a lot at the moment. I mean, the whole germ of the content that I'm putting out at the moment is that, I read this quote, and we often quote it, that Jeff Bezos, who's the CEO and founder of Amazon, said that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And right now, nobody's in the room. So what are you saying about your brand? But also your brand is the thing that's having to do the talking for you. If you can't be in front of your target audience, maybe putting out content, is your brand supporting that content? Is, like with that one-off photo of Rebecca's, is it going to get passed on by because people don't recognize it because you haven't got a strong brand in place? Rebecca did, but that photo didn't have it on. I think somebody else probably put it out. But it's about thinking. I've been working with entrepreneurs at the moment, and I'm doing a brand strategy workshop actually next Wednesday, which is fully booked right now. We've ended up having to do 3 sessions because it is fully booked. But if there is interest from your business community, we could run a special Dubai edition for FTEN Academy. FTEN
Yeah,
X.
I'd love that. Yeah.
So it's a free branding workshop. It's promised to be free all the way through lockdown.
Wow.
My big thing right now is that, when a lot of businesses are doing a lot of planning right now. And so the first part of the process for vision is strategy. You don't need a designer to do this part, to do the visualization bit, the inner brand and the standout. That's stuff that you can do yourself.
Yeah.
With the team, this is what, Zoom and Microsoft Teams and other networking platforms are, available. But this is what this is for, and you can kind of start having those conversations, because I would really say don't go rushing out and rebrand right now, because there are a lot of businesses going through a lot of change. This landscape is changing. You are probably changing aspects of your business, or you're having to pivot in the same way that you and I have had to. This is not the time to go slap a logo on it. It's the time to actually work out your brand strategy. And this is what we going through in the workshop, and actually understand your brand and understand what you're trying to communicate and who your audience are and what's the transformation that you're going to make to their lives, and do all that. You can do an awful lot of that work without me, without anybody else, just amongst your. Obviously, I facilitate that, and I know the questions to ask when people do work with me.
Right, and that's what the free workshop does, right? It gives people the opportunity to go through that with you.
Yes, but in a group.
They can go away and do the heavy lifting before they then go and make a change, if that's what they need to do, right?
Exactly, and actually, within that brand workshop, we kind of look at your branding, your existing branding, and go, well, is it serving you a purpose? Now is it working for you? Or other parts that need to change? Quite often with an established brand, like your own with the Warrior Academy, and Seb, you've achieved a lot of success with the brand that you've got right now. So, arguably, you could say we don't need a rebrand, but as your business moves forward, and also, fashions change and sort of styles change and technology changes. So can that brand evolve over time? And this is the time to actually sit down and go, well, actually, where do we want to take the business right now? And actually, how can the brand support that? Because I've got a model in the book called the Do Say See model.
Yeah, I remember this, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like what you do and what you say you do has to marry up with what people see. So it's like, do those things all match? Because sometimes quite often they don't. So you might have a product or service, and you say you've got a quality product or service, but then people go on the website and it looks a bit rubbish or a bit cheap, or the branding looks a bit homemade, or it doesn't load very quickly, or there's or it looks mismatched, like because it's evolved over time and lots of different elements have come in from different suppliers, and it all starts looking a bit messy. So that bit isn't saying high end and quality in the same way that you are trying to portray. So the strategy part is about making sure that the do, say, and see align,
right.
And actually will support your brand in the center of that. When they align, that there's a correlation between the three, and actually that's what people see a solid brand to be.
So I mean, I guess for a lot of brands who feel they are well established, but they may not realize if they are or not, because they haven't had these sorts of conversations, right? In terms of their branding, putting them out there in the best light possible. If they feel they want to make a change, if I take Warrior Academy as an example, right, we've got all of our students in, thousands of students in uniforms which look a certain way, instructors wearing certain uniforms. We've got lots of vans driving across the country which are wrapped in a certain branding, 2 different websites, all these different things, which obviously looks a certain way. If we were going to make a change to that, it would be quite a substantial change to make.
It is. I mean,
how far do you go when you're making a change, and do you drip feed it, or do you just bang, make a change?
So obviously this is down to timing and budgets and the real life constraints around this, rather than just ideal world scenarios. But again, if I can use Coaching Impact as an example, they've been going for 10 years and have a lot of brand assets, with their 10 associates or more working on the brand. And they've produced a lot of collateral over the years. So obviously we couldn't start with changing everything all at once. But I took her through a process, what I call evolution, not revolution. And so the brand should evolve, right? So it's not let's throw everything out right now, because your brand is working for you on a level. Yeah. Can it be improved? Yeah, yes, it can be. But for right now, is it working? Yes, it is. So I take people through a brand assessment, which is a kind of one-on-one thing where, again, we pull all the assets together. And we take a sort of overview of everything that you have, your websites and your videos and your branded, kind of geese and the vans and everything, and the instructor uniforms. And we have a look at everything and kind of go, well, all right, what's working or what's not working. What's actually quite interesting is once you put everything together, you quite often see that there are bits that stand out that don't look that they're quite on brand. And that might be the first thing that you change. But we kind of look at, well, what's working and what's not working. And I've got like a traffic light system where I go, right, well, this bit's working, keep it in green. We can keep that bit, because you'll also you've got brand recognition, you've got brand equity in what you've done so far. So you don't want to be throwing the whole thing away because you're throwing away your brand equity. Brands like McDonald's and Coca-Cola don't redesign their logo every 5 to 10 years. It's small tweaks to their logo, but it's also small tweaks to their branding. And as their products change or whatever, with Coca-Cola recently, they used to have all the different cans. Certainly in the UK, they used to have the sort of silver can for Diet Coke and the black can, I think, for Max. I don't drink fizzy drinks, so I can't remember which one applies to which. But they have like a silver can and a black can and a red can, I think, for Coke Classic. But in more recent years, or the most recent rebrand, what they've done is made all the cans red. And just had a little strip of the black and a strip of the silver at the top. Now, the reason for that is because they want to try and transition full-fat Coke drinkers to trying these lower sugar versions.
Right, clever.
More similar.
And people already are familiar with black meaning zero and silver meaning whatever it is, right? Diet or
So, but then what they want to do is try and, I suppose, confuse people into picking up the wrong one. But more about saying that there's less difference in taste, and actually, so people can try, so they're visually trying to bring their brand together.
Right.
So even Cola do it, You know, McDonald's, they have been trying to, again, sort of with the healthy eating thing, they've been trying to inject more green into what is ultimately a yellow and red brand. But if you go into the stores, which I don't, again, I don't eat McDonald's, so I don't know why I'm using examples of brands I don't use, but they're massive brands, they're massive, successful brands that are globally known. But you know, in the leaflets, then they've started to introduce green, because they're trying to put across that they're encouraging healthy eating amongst, you know, sort of their consumers and their you know, the children that come in there as well.
Yeah.
So there are ways that you can evolve your brand to move with the messaging that you are, you know, you're evolving your company.
Yeah.
In fact, if your brand stays static for too long, it sends off a visual message that your brand is static to, and that your company is static. So if there's no change, so there's this real balance between consistency. You need consistency so people can recognize you. You don't want so much consistency over years and years and years that people get bored with looking at what you're putting out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Actually, there's a guy called Alan Garnett who wrote a book called The Creative Curve, and he talks about human beings' necessity. We have a craving. It's like a dichotomy, and we've got a craving for novelty, but we also want familiarity.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the human. That's human beings, right? So we want and the thing is with a brand, to keep your branding consistent, it implies that your company is solid. It shows itself. It knows where it's going, and it's not going anywhere fast. You know, if you keep changing the colours and the typefaces and your visual identity too often, it looks like a branding crisis. It looks like you're not really sure of your voice. It looks like you're not really sure of your look, and it's, you know, it doesn't instill confidence. So
with that consistency in mind, I know you specialize in branding for companies and not for personal branding, but I mean, using that example of the way you're seen when you're out there speaking, or you're out and about and there's photos or whatever, and you're showing up in your red, and that represents your brand for your company, but not necessarily the brand for you, right? Unless that's linked.
No, well, the thing is, the red in the posts and in the photos go in my LinkedIn posts and on my social posts, because I'm the popular. Right. So it becomes.
I guess what I mean is, how do you choose? I mean, if you've got a different color which represents you, or a different whatever style which represents you, how do you then choose whether to go out branded with your company or go out branded with your own kind of style? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Rebecca doesn't wear yellow. She owns yellow, but she doesn't wear it ever. But she wore black. She wore black all the time anyway. That was her style. When she presents, she wears black.
Okay.
The brand colours are black and yellow anyway, so that ties in. But it's just to make sure that the posts she puts out have an element of yellow, because that's the thing that catches the eye. You don't have to wear it. It's just that coincidentally, I had my colours done by a lady called Jo Baldwin-Trott, who actually features in the book as well as a case study, because we ended up. It was funny because I met her just as a mum at school.
Yeah.
And she let slip that she was a personal brand, you know, consultant and stylist. And I thought, I was starting to get more speaking engagements. And I'd been filmed at a Shift to Success event, actually, and realised, because I was wearing black, because I love wearing black, realised that I blended in with the crowd and no one could see me because I'm tiny. And I was at floor level, and you could literally just see this floating head. And I thought, oh God, now I realise why speakers need to wear colour,
right,
or something that stands out, right? So when I bumped into her at school and we were chatting, and I was just like, oh, actually, could you give me a card, because I might want to work with you. I'm looking for someone to maybe get me a new work wardrobe, and for my speaker wardrobe, I called it. And she gave me a card, and it was bloody awful. It was it's in the book. It was absolutely horrendous. It's actually on my website as well. And I thought, and if I'd have looked at that, if I hadn't got to know her first over a series of weeks, because we were doing a parenting course together. So this was like maybe week 7 or 8 of 10, right? But I met her at the first time at a networking event, and she'd have handed that to me. I'd have thought, you can style me. And she's very chic, but her business card, her card was just awful. And I looked at it, and I thought, do you know what? I went, do you fancy swapping services?
Natural traits there.
Yeah, and so she styled me, and she kind of did a wardrobe edit and did my colours and took me out shopping and spent a whole day with me. and it was just for the speaker wardrobe. I still wear what I wear normally for the rest of the time. But and then I did her branding, and it's so funny because she said before she was embarrassed to hand her business card out. Now, for somebody who gets a lot of their business from networking events, that's actually quite a sad thing if you're too embarrassed to hand your card out. But now I've got a card which is, it is such a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Because
and there you go, gives her confidence straight away. She hands it out with pride. Boom, there you go.
She can't wait to show them off now. It's just got her name on it because we established in the call she had too much on her on the business card. It was too cluttery, and she had everything and testimonials and she'd actually got it on a postcard size. That was a business card.
Oh wow, cool.
On both sides, and I just went, this is too much, And it was like, you're the only Joe Baldwin Trot in the world, right? And she went, yeah. So we'll just put that on we'll just put your logo on, which was Joe Baldwin Trot. Her name was her logo. And I went, and nothing else. And the reverse was just a bright teal, her favourite colour. And then we put a silver foil edge on there, so it looks like it catches the light when you get it. And she was just like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Why? Just putting your name and no details. And I was like, no, because what anybody does when you give them their card, what do you do when someone gives you their card?
Google the name.
Google them.
Yeah.
You're Google famous anyway, Joe. You're the only Joe Baldwin Trot in the world. What are they going to do when they type your name in? They're going to find your website, your LinkedIn, whatever.
And not only that, I mean, if she's well recognized on the internet, it's going to bring up featured in this, featured in that. It's instant credibility and authority for her.
Yeah. So the thing is, it actually supported what she does because she's a personal brand consultant. She helps people with their personal brand, and actually, this was a really confident thing to go there and just go, because you're in effect just going, you'll find me online.
Right. Google me.
Just Google me. But it was a strong well statement. And she said, it's not. She said some people kind of go, ooh, like there was one woman that went, ooh, they've forgotten to print the details on it.
Yeah, right.
Whereas
I love it. I think it's just such confidence, isn't it?
Right? But she said, guys love it, and they're like, oh, that's really cool.
But I mean, again, that's very aligned with her values, surely, because if she's, giving other people confidence in the way they look and the way they show up, by being a brand consultant, then that is like the perfect way to show that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm living, breathing proof of that. Here's my card.
We actually say we did for each other what we, so I sorted her branding and she sorted my personal styling. So that was kind of
styling a consultant.
We both made each other more visible in a different way. So that's kind of quite nice. So we have actually worked together on clients. So when I've got a client who is having their branding done, and if they do need help in the wardrobe department to get their colours done and maybe styling, then I'll pass them over to Jo. And she does the same, vice versa. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like I've learned so much today.
Good.
I mean, we've gone over why branding is so important, why it's more important now than ever before. We've gone over your vision process for establishing your brand and diving deep into your values and how to dig into how you should be representing yourself and your values and your own brand. And really, really valuable stuff. We've got a bunch of questions here as well. It's been really busy on the comments on YouTube and on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look on the right, you can scroll down. I'll just pick a few because I know you've got to shoot off as well. But let me see. What's this one? If you're not consistent, it's brandalism.
Oh, I love it. Can I use it? Who said that?
It's not showing up at the moment. It's just saying Facebook user. Guys, if you click on the description of this video, you'll see StreamYard says click here to get access to StreamYard, and then we can actually see your names. So I'm not quite sure who that is, but that is funny. Let's have a look here.
We'll grab that because it's really fun. I'd like to give an accreditation to whoever wrote that. Stealing IP.
Do you need big budgets to promote your brand? So not create your brand, but promote it.
Well, that very much depends on what you're going to do with it, because social media is free. If you want to do it yourself, it's free. So promoting your brand is not really where we get involved. I have a lady and I pay her to do my social media. So yes, it does cost me, but I think the thing that branding will do and that a strong brand will give you is confidence as you're putting out your social media posts. So what tone of voice you should be applying, what kind of images you should be using, what kind of languages, what kind of language. and what colors and everything. So it gives your social media that consistency. And again, people start to recognize it. So it's really hard to quantify what business ROI you get with branding, but because also when people are going through rebrand, they're often changing a lot of other things about their business as well. So it's really hard to quantify what that bit makes. But I wouldn't say I could really talk about the cost of social media. Sorry.
That's all right. Good one here. I found establishing a really good tone of voice helped when developing other assets that sit online. And by the way, the FTEN X brand guidelines that Tim and the team and Rajiv have created is really, really cool, by the way. I don't know if you guys would share that. I've got Tim next to me. Maybe he'll share that with you guys in the comments, but very, very cool. And you can see how they've used that with everything they've done. But Tim says here, I struggled for about 6 months, though, to make this. Any tips on how to develop this quicker or further? And is it important for all brands? So a tone of voice.
Tone of voice is really important for all brands. It's, it's consistency again, and it's establishing. It's this whole know, like, and trust. If you show up consistently in every aspect of your brand, people start to know what to expect. And if you keep chopping and changing that, then you come across as a bit schizophrenic, frankly, as a brand. And no one wants to hang out with the schizophrenic, right? So the schizophrenic brand. So you need that consistency. Brand tone is really important. You said the question was how to get there quicker. Obviously, I'd say buy my book, and that will help. That was in all seriousness, there is a lot in there that will help you with that.
From your book, when I read your book, and thanks for letting me be the proofreader on that. When I read your book, what kind of struck me was how much practical advice there was. You gave away so much in the book, so much value in terms of you could pick that book up and feel like you've got a really good chance of creating something awesome yourself. But you do leave wanting to work with you instead, though.
I know. Actually, Andrew Priestley said to me, he goes, "You've been really generous with your IP there. You've given too much." And I could have shot myself in the foot, because there could be a lot of people think, "Oh, well, I'm going to do it all myself." But the idea is, if you do, want to work with me, then let's have a conversation. So, but I would say, even if it's not me, if you want, the way to do it quicker is to actually work with a professional, right? And don't try and do it yourself, because you'll get. Totally. I both know that you learn from a professional, and you up your skills game much quicker.
This is it, isn't it? You can, if you add up the amount of time and effort and energy and money, and then money you're leaving on the table because you're not having such a big impact with your brand, then it's an absolute no-brainer to find someone awesome. So a quick question that I've got a little brother who I think is watching this, actually, and he lives in Copenhagen, and he's just started a business. And he's been trying to create a logo, to perfect the logo, to find the perfect logo for about 6 weeks, and it probably feels like 6 years for him. And in some ways, from a business perspective, that's slowing him down, right? Because he's not able to go out there, and he doesn't have the confidence to put his brand out there because it's not representing him in the way that he wants, because he's not happy with the logo, right? What advice would you give him? Because you deal with so many startups. What advice would you give someone like that? Who just can't get the logo out there?
It's like with Dent. You have to, the entrepreneur forum that we met through. You've got to do the values foundation. You've got to do the work beforehand. Don't just go straight to. Don't just go straight to logo. It's understanding your vision. It's understanding your aspirational brands as well. Look at the brands that you admire, within and without of your industry, and what are they doing and how are they doing it, and actually notice. But quite a lot of big brands, quite a lot of very confident brands don't do an awful lot with that logo. The logo is simple. And I think the less you fuck with things, really, sometimes you're more high end. You can look, what's the business that your brother is launching?
He's a videographer.
Oh, right. Okay. So I'd encourage you, to look at your 5 aspirational brands, think about the big vision, where you want to be. Think about the people that work with you, and what kind of brands are they loyal to, and what kind of brands do they interact with, and where do they want to be as a result of working with you, all that stuff that we said, and visualize. Then look at your inner brand, get the values out there, because if your brand comes across, if your brand value is, you know, professional, for example, don't go all flouncy and swirly with a pink, you know, font, because you're just going to look really girly. But if your brand value is that it's, you know, I'm not saying for your brother, but I'm just, you know, if your brand, if one of your brand values is, you know, kind of gentle, then maybe a soft pink is right for it. So actually getting the brand values down first is going to help you, because then you kind of look at the typeface and you go, well, is that saying friendly, or is that saying professional, or is that saying jokey, or is that saying feminine, or do you know what I mean? So brand values, personality, and I'm talking brand personality and voice for all those words that I just said then. But the personality could be friendly and open and you know, welcoming, in which case don't do a big bold font that shouts, you know, in all caps, if you want to look friendly and welcoming and user friendly, or do you know what I mean? So that's why Facebook or Twitter go all lowercase, because they want to look like really easy to use and friendly and approachable. And that can work for some brands, and a lot of tech brands go lowercase because they want to put across ease of use. Wow. Yeah. So if they went all shouty and big, they look too scary and too masculine. So big capitals can look a bit masculine if they're shouty and bold fonts. Or if you do elegant, you can do elegant fonts and capitals, and that looks really elegant and high end. So it depends. It's not just about the font; it's about the weight of it. It's about the color of it. So again, all of that is in the book. But and then standout is look at your competitors and what are they doing. And there's bits of it that you'll like, and there's bits of it you don't like. So borrow some of the bits you like. I'm not saying plagiarize, but just realize what the trends are, and then do a little bit different to make sure that you stand out. Amazing. Does that help? Advice. Yeah, amazing advice. Really, really good. I'd love to take you up an offer of doing a brand workshop at some stage. I think that'd be really good. We'll send an email out to all of our members here at FTEN X Academy and see what we can put together. That'd be absolutely amazing. Sapna, how can everyone get in touch with you? They can Google you, right? They can Google me. There's only one Sapna Pieroux in the world, actually. Find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me. LinkedIn. You know, and your book is Let's Get Visible. That's on Amazon, guys. I proofread it before it went out, and it's awesome. If you want a really, really good guide and really amazing way to more about branding, you know, that's the way to do it. So it won a business book award, didn't it? Oh, it won the business. It won the business book award 2020. Just gone. Not book of the year, but it was startup inspiration. Actually, it was highly commended. But wow, congratulations! Thank you. Amazing achievement. Cool. So yeah, thank you so much, Sapna, for coming on. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.